We're live. Okay. Hello, everybody. Hello. Hello, hello, hello. It's got to be already now a year since you all heard my voice last time. Hello. I'm going to keep this kind of short and simple. Really, I just wanted to kind of just explain where I'm going to be going here with the next update. And then kind of also explain a little bit of what happened over like the last 6 months, because I was planning to do quite a lot and then I didn't get a lot done. So that was kind of fun. Not so. Yeah, let me quickly switch over to Unity for a second. Let's see. I gotta remember all the hotkeys I've set up for this. I think it's that one. Yeah. Okay. You should be seeing Unity here. Yeah, it is. Okay. Um, so here's what's gonna happen. So if you haven't seen it already, I've already done the uh, version 0.1.121, which is I know, confusing number, but anyway, yeah, that was the graphic overhaul update. So I've added a bunch of new assets, um, new vegetation, completely had to retexture a lot of the environments, and of course I upgraded the whole thing to use Unity's new HDRP lighting system. Um, Hang on just a second. I was not expecting that to come on. My heater came on for a second there. It's fine. It's fine. We get issues once in a while. It's a live stream. But anyway, there it is. So so that was kind of the point of that update. So this next update is supposed to be the last sort of major content update for Alpha 1. Um, and here's kind of what I'm going to be working on, what I've already have worked on. I can pull it up here somewhere. So some of these trees, let's see, tree wind, yeah. Which ones were they that I just edited? I was actually working on this like an hour ago, so um, this is literally like fresh developments here. So like some of these tree models, and you see them a lot on the San Juan map. They were really unoptimized. So you have like a level of detail system, right? And supposedly, the further back you go, if you know how level of detail works, the further back you go, the lower the quality the model is, right? A lot of these models only had like one or two level of detail models, and they had multiple materials. As you can see, like this has like 4 materials, this has 2, right? So it was super unoptimized because you had a high poly count, you had a lot of materials, which meant that you had more batch calls, which is when your CPU is telling your GPU what to render every frame. So it was really unoptimized. So what I've done is, for a lot of these, I've actually created a separate, I know it's hard to see, but I've actually created like a separate mesh that's even more lightweight. We can actually see right here. Yeah, I stripped it down just to 983 triangles, is the lightest one, and this one only has 1 material. And that way, especially for like the San Juan map, a lot of these forest scenes where you have a lot of vegetation, they should disappear. This is just the main menu. I don't want to open up the San Juan map while there's a live stream, or else this thing's going to be at like 8 FPS. the the editor. I've noticed that with the upgrade to the newer version of Unity, the editor is now running significantly slower on my computer. It is old. Um, it's probably gonna need to be upgraded here soon. Um, but yeah, so at least the game runs fine. It's just in the editor there's a lot of slowdown, and that's obviously not fun to watch on a live stream. So yeah, I finished the optimization. So that was kind of the first part of this next update. Uh, as I was showing earlier, for a second there, um, I am going to be updating the UI for the main menu. It's pretty old. It's from still the original version of Alpha 1. A lot of the buttons look like they come straight out of like a mobile game. They're big and huge. So I'm going to kind of fix that, make it look a little bit nicer, sort of reformat a lot of the layout. And that should be like a day. That shouldn't take long. Even the optimization stuff I did in like 2 days, so that was pretty easy. Um, the other thing, the AI. There's a few more states, infantry states, that I need to still add that haven't been created yet. And there's also a lot of states that still are very, very buggy. And here's the thing: the AI is not going to get like fixed in one update. I know there's lots of problems with it, um, and there's a lot of solutions I have to fix it. It's one of those things that's just going to be fixed over time, over like the course of all the different versions. Even after the Steam launch, versions. Sorry, Alpha 2, Alpha 3, Alpha 4, Alpha 5. There's still going to be work on the AI, because it's such a complicated system, that we would be here for a long time to fix it. But what I at least want to do for this update, right, get some of those base states implemented and create like a debug sort of screen. So you'll have like you'll be able to like press like a certain combination of keys, and it'll open up like some like information on like the side of the screen that will say like, okay, this AI infantry is at this state, it's targeting this enemy, and things like that. And that way I can actually more easily figure out like what's wrong with the AI, where to actually like improve and fix it. Because it's just, yeah, it's really, the Battle of Alicante? Yeah. Um, Sorry, I wasn't planning on answering that many questions, just because it's kind of a late stream. Yeah, El Caney uh, was kind of the same battle that was done alongside the San Juan, um, and that is going to be in the story mode for the game. Well, it'll be in for the game for regardless, even in the instant action mode. Um, but I'm not working on that right now. What I really want to do, yeah, well, because they were splitting their to answer your question, they were splitting their their troops in two different areas. You had a lot at El Caney, you had a lot at San Juan, um, and then there were just some at Santiago de Cuba. Plus, if I remember correctly, and I still need to kind of go back on my notes here, um, but I think a lot of troops were still like trying to get onto the island. So it's like they weren't still on there yet. There was a bit of a delay in actually like shipping troops from Spain. So, but I'd have to recheck my notes on that. Uh, yeah. Well, they should have done a lot of things. In all honesty, yeah. You know, the Spanish made a lot of mistakes. So did the Everybody made a lot of mistakes. I mean, you can rattle a whole like list of the mistakes that the Spanish made, that the Americans made, pretty much everybody except I guess you could say the some like the Philippines and the Cuban. I want to say revolutionaries, but I guess for lack of better terms, revolutionaries. They're probably the only ones that actually were like prepared. Um, Shot down a U.S. balloon. Uh, really? Trying to think. I'm trying to recall if that was. Hmm. Well, as you could tell, I still need to do a little bit more digging on certain aspects. But hmm. And they had German advisors at Santiago. That one I actually yes, I believe that is, but for the artillery, yeah. Um, yeah, that I do know about. Yeah, there's kind of a lot of gray area on that though. Um, I'm not entirely like okay. So here's why I say there's a lot of gray area. There's that movie called The Rough Riders, which is kind of like the only like main film about the Spanish American War, and yeah, they actually took a lot of liberties with um like the actual the Germans that they actually were there. Yeah, it is confusing. Um, there is again they took a lot of liberties, so that not everything in that movie was accurate. Um, I know they for instance they thought the Mac I think it's Maxim gun or Maxim gun, which is like a early machine gun. Um, that actually was shown in the movie that like oh the Spanish were using that. They never actually had that. I actually was almost gonna add that as a artillery weapon in the game, and then I did my research and found out there was never any signs that that was actually there. Uh, we do. I mean, honest, that's kind of what I hope that this game is gonna be. Um, they did, but from what I heard, yeah, they were on the island, but they never actually used them. Yeah, the the supposed like account is that um, I forgot who. I don't think it was Teddy Roosevelt, but it was one of the colonels. They heard the sound of like machine gun fire, and they were thinking like, oh, that's the Spanish, and then they found out no, that's actually us, right? Um, yeah, yeah. They found out like, oh, that's actually our machine guns. That's so they got kind of confused at first. Um, but yeah, something I hope that this game is gonna do is kind of like what Battlefield One did, which is that World War One was still popular as a topic, but it was nowhere near like the level of like World War Two or any of the wars that came after, like during the Cold War. Um, that game, at least for younger generations, really like popularized that conflict and made it, much more mainstream to kind of learn and research about. And as a result, there's so many games and movies now about World War One. Yeah, and Puerto Rico, and yes, yes, and that's actually something I for the story mode in this game. I know I'm getting a little sidetracked because I was originally planning on talking about the next update, but yes, the story mode in this game is going to be the first half is going to be mostly in Cuba, and then the second half is going to be in Puerto Rico, as well as a little bit in the Philippines. There's going to be like one or two levels that take place in the Philippines. Um, yeah, again, like this is again, I was really inspired by Battlefield One, and a lot of other games too, but Battlefield One definitely just because uh, oh geez, now my now Unity's lagging for a bit. But yeah, I really wanted to make a Spanish American War game just because I really want to make it so that people kind of know a lot more about this conflict, this war, because I feel like a lot of people they just they know of course about the main. They know about San Juan, and they know about the Rough Riders, and like that's about it. Um, and like that's good. That's good information, and I got it. It's a short conflict, so there's not a whole lot of content to begin with, but even still, like it's just one of those conflicts, like the Ivory Coast Wars, like the Mexican American War, that all these kind of conflicts that just like they just kind of fly under the radar, and I hope that this game kind of actually raises a little bit of interest and intrigue from especially younger people. Yeah, yeah. Well, just because I guess the Philippine War, that's kind of like their war for independence, really, if you think about it. Um, and to be fair, it's that war has also been sort of politicized a bit in recent years. At least it seems like to me. Um, the Spanish American War has often been conflated with imperialism, American imperialism, and while this game, I don't. I Here's the thing with this game. My goal is to try to be as unbiased as possible. I'm not trying to tell people like how to think when they play this game. Um, I'm just trying to basically give you, the main points, and then kind of let the player think about, you know, who's in the right and who's in the wrong. So it's not like an anti-war game. It's not a anti-American game or anything like that. It's meant to basically just kind of just explain the history. Um, but I can see that again. A lot of people, they use the Spanish-American War, they use the Philippine War to kind of talk about American imperialism and like, okay, this sort of overreach. Um, yeah, the last veteran died in the 90s. Yes, yes. Um, I'm not sure if I'm gonna do this or not, but in the museum, there's a museum mode, of course, in this game where you can see all of the weapons. Again, it's still very much a work in progress, but I hope to one day actually add an extra exhibit in that museum mode that is going to have like a list of all the various veterans that because I actually found. Okay, hold on. Let me actually pull up the website for a second here. Um, there's a great website I use. Spanish American War Centennial website. Yeah, this is a great website because it just has. Let's see, turn it on, capture, and that should be, yeah, okay. Wow. So this is where I get a lot of research from. This is not the only one, of course, but I get a lot of research from here just because there's just so much. Um, and somewhere in here, and I can't find it because it's not metals. Um, somewhere in here, uh, there was actually um, there was a section here that actually has like a list of like the names of every single soldier that actually fought both on the uh, American side and also on the Spanish side. Um, all the different regiments and companies, and like it doesn't go, of course, into detail like if they died in the war or not, or um, really like what their involvement was, but like it does have like their names, and like if I'm allowed to, uh, I would love to actually have like just like a like almost like a section where you can just kind of like see all the different people that were involved. Um, just out of kind of showing some honor and some dignity to those that actually fought. Um, so, but yeah, I don't know where on this website is. I did see it though earlier. Medals, uniforms. Hmm. Well, anyway, so it's somewhere on here. I can find it later. Um, but yeah, so that's kind of the plan for that. But anyway, going back to the next update. So I've done some of the optimization stuff for like the forests. I'm going to be doing the UI here over the next like day or two. Um, who had the better uniform? The Spanish. This like okay. Um, who had the coolest looking uniforms? The Americans, but who had actually like the most like practical was the Spanish. Absolutely, because we were basically putting. No, hold on. Hear me out. Hear me out. Yes, I know, but hear me out. Here's the thing. A lot of the uniforms that the Americans were wearing, they were heavy because we basically designed them sort of like post Civil War, but with sort of like that Civil War mentality. Um, because because of that, a lot of the uniforms were very like thick, and when you're fighting in the Caribbean, in the tropics, um, obviously that gets very uncomfortable, right? So a lot of the soldiers were sweating, and it was it was not a very pleasant thing. Whereas in the Spanish, they had much lightweight uniforms. They were actually accustomed to the temperature and the climate, and so their uniforms were actually more suited for the environment. So yes, the Rough Riders look cool. The Rough Riders look cool. That's why I even that was like the first thing I modeled when I came to the soldiers was like, okay, I want to make the Rough Riders. It looks cool. We were dripped out for sure. um, but I think the Spanish were the most practical. They were the most prepared. Um, Again, that's kind of one of those things of like the Americans kind of messed that up. We made a lot of mistakes. The Spanish made a lot of mistakes. It was yeah. Yeah, a lot of them took off their shirts in battle. You'll oftentimes see like they roll up their sleeves like all the way to their shoulders. um, so yeah, it was yeah very uncomfortable. Um, but again, I will admit we were a little bit more classy, for sure. um, it's actually why I like this menu that I background I've made. Um, just because I think it looks kind of cool. But anyway, so uh, here's some other things I want to do for this next update. In addition to the AI stuff, I got controller support things I want to add. Because right now you can only play the game with a keyboard and mouse, so that's going to be coming in this next update. Key bindings, so you can map your input and whatever, and then also localization. So right now the game's only playable in English. Um, I for a game that's about the Spanish American War, I really feel a little ashamed that I don't know more Spanish. I'm gonna try to learn some Spanish as much as I can, but in the event that, of course, I don't really learn enough. Well, thank you. Um, I hope it's gonna be good. Um, I'm just hoping that people are gonna be patient. um, Fuego. Hold on. Translate. I'll learn right now. Hold on. Fuego. Oh, fire. Okay. Yeah, makes sense. You need to tell your infantry when to fire. Um, Keep in mind this another classic mistake that both the Americans and Spanish made. This was still a war where we were still using volley fire tactics. Where, if you don't know what volley fire is, that was when people would line up um, without even really covering themselves. behind, behind like, like trenches or, uh, sandbags or things like that. And they would literally just like, all right, just like shoot forward, right? And like that makes sense in like musket warfare because muskets are smoothbore and they're very, very inaccurate. Um, but this was also really the first war. I know the Civil War technically is, but this was really the first war where we actually had rifling, and we actually put uh, gunpowder inside of the cartridges, and as a result, you could load firearms faster, and you could also um, fire these firearms with much more precision and accuracy. Um, yeah, the Spanish used it. The Americans also used it a lot. Even Teddy Roosevelt mentioned when he was at San Juan that he would actually tell his troops to use volley fire tactics, which was again kind of weird. Um, mm, yeah, I mean, again, when we say brutality, I mean, a war is brutal, of course. That's regardless. The only reason why I'm kind of second guessing on that is just because the wars that came after that were even more brutal than the Spanish American War, and it kind of seems like the Spanish American War is kind of nowhere near as brutal as as those wars. But yeah, of course, war is still war. So yeah, but um, I just lost my train of thought. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Again, that's kind of why I want to have that section in the museum, just to have like the list of veterans. Um, and it's also kind of the uh, whole point of the game being called Unsung Heroes. It's about not this like one man army like you kind of see in a lot of these like Call of Duty games, even Battlefield, right? Uh, you play as a select few characters, right? And you just kind of run and gun and try to, you know, get to the end. Battlefield 1 at least tries to show the fragility and vulnerability, but you're still playing as basically a person that's killing hundreds or even thousands, and realistically speaking, that's not accurate. Um, Real warfare is you kill maybe, you know, few people, and you know, that's already, yeah. Rising Front is, I've heard of Rising Front. I've never played it though. Um, yeah, I have heard of it though, but I've never played it. There's quite a lot of World War One games. Again, I think Battlefield One really popularized that. There's that one indie game. I think it's called Onzo or something like that. I can look it up. Uh, okay, hold on. I don't know. Oh, I I just typed in Wii. Whoopsies. World War One. There we go. Hang on a second. I just realized all of my search history is now. Everybody's not seeing my search history. There we go. Okay. Let me see. Onzio. I think that's it. Yeah. Game. Should be on Steam, no? Okay, maybe I'm thinking of something else. Um, Maybe I'm thinking of something else. Anyway, so there was a yeah, it's massive, just tons of people. First American war game. Yeah. Oh, Isanzo, you found it. Okay, yeah, actually that's it. Isa. Yeah, I got it. I got it. I got it. Yeah, you got it. Okay, that's thank you. Thank you. You actually okay. Yeah, this was the game I was talking about. Yeah, so there's a lot of indie games now, and even some AAA games. Hell Let Loose. I completely forgot about that one. That's a great one actually. Hell Let Loose is actually uh, very immersive. Probably a lot more immersive than than I'm aiming for. Hmm. But yeah, yeah, definitely. I need to play some of these because again the thing is I haven't played that many games in like the last 2 years just because I've been so focused on school, um, and uh, also just working on this, of course. So my I think the last time I bought anything off of Steam had to have been like a year and a half ago. I'm hoping to once I start getting an actual job, um, because right now I'm still working a part time job, so I you know don't have too much time. But once I hopefully figure all of that out, hopefully then I can actually start actually playing some other games again. Yeah, so that thing with the Spanish American War, more people died, at least on the American side, more people died from disease after the war than actually from combat. Um, the number of soldiers, I'm not sure if it was 630. Um, although if it's from the side, I would probably say that's probably accurate. I thought it was more like 400, so that's that's why I'm a little. Again, there's a lot of double checking I would need to do, um, but yeah, yeah. So yellow fever, I think, something like that. So, and again, it goes back to also just how unprepared we were. We didn't have the right clothing. We didn't take the precautions. We didn't really have. Um, I mean, honestly, I don't even think we really even had the medicine available. But there's also, of course, just things like natural immunity you got to think about as well. So, the Spanish, they were actually accustomed again to the area. Americans were not, right? So, oh yeah. Well, I mean, honestly, I really don't know how it would have gone down if the Spanish would have stayed in Santiago. Um, because again, like it was a pretty long siege. If I'm not mistaken, it was at least like a week. Um, oddly enough, during the 4th of July. So that was kind of fun, I guess. Um, but yeah, I don't know. The thing is, most people like to say that the San Juan Hill was kind of like the almost like climactic battle of the war. Like it was the turning point, right? There's always like in every war, there's always that one turning point battle that's like, okay, after this, one side is clearly gonna win, right? And while yeah, the odds were kind of stacked against the Spanish, even from the very beginning, most people kind of agree that the San Juan battle was kind of that was like the real turning point in the conflict. And the thing is though is there was so much that happened after that that I don't even know if I can really trust most historians on actually if that's to really agree with them on that. But that being said, I mean like if the Spanish were to stay at Santiago de Cuba, I think I don't know. Maybe the odds would have still, the end would have probably still been the same. But maybe not. Maybe not. Would have lasted years. I don't know. Because here's the thing: the Spanish didn't actually even really want to get into the conflict. Depending on who you ask, depending on who you ask, the Spanish didn't really want to get into the conflict. If you take the again, the game's not trying to tell you what side to pick, but there's right now kind of two trains of thought. Either the main was blown up intentionally from a sea mine, or the main was blew up unintentionally, accidentally, because of a boiler explosion. If you use the boiler explosion narrative, which is what the Spanish basically gave, then you could see that, okay, they didn't want to actually start any conflict. If you know that it was actually a sea mine, then it kind of seems like they were just trying to instigate stuff and then try to get away with it. So again, it depends on how you look at the war. If they actually wanted to stay in for a long time, or if they were gonna leave, or not leave. They were gonna put less of a resistance, I guess. But it's funny, it's because even to this day, we still don't know what actually happened to the main. Like there's been some, brave scientists or historians, quote unquote brave, that say, oh, it's this, it's definitely this, or it's definitely the explosion, or it's the boiler explosion, or it's definitely the sea mine, and like nobody's like, okay, but do we actually like there's no like general consensus. It just keeps changing every like couple of years. You got a message retracted. What happened? Wasn't even looking. We were being bullies. Hold on. I gotta read this. Really? The Americans attacked the Spanish in the streets. I'm not sure about that. I'd have to again read a little more. I mean, it could be possible though. Like those that are in the homeland, homeland. That says okay. Those that are actually on American soil, they probably might have faced something. Yeah. Spanish should have used all the troops. Take the hill. Just rushing the Amer. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I again, the Spanish made a lot of mistakes. That's everybody. That again, that should probably be like the biggest um, headline for the Spanish American War. There were a lot of mistakes made. Um, there wasn't really any intelligent or smart plays made. Um, even I would admit, even the Rough Riders, as much as I love Teddy Roosevelt, he's my favorite president. Um, Even I'll admit, like there was still mistakes that were made from the volunteer regiment. Um, yeah, yeah. Well, again, with artillery, I mean, again, they were still using volley fire tactics, so their mindset largely was just kind of okay. We could just stand in a line and just shoot our way to victory. Which yeah, again, that works in like the Revolutionary War situation because it's like okay, well we can just we're using muskets. Everything is imprecise. It doesn't work obviously when you have modern precise weaponry, whether that be a bolt action rifle or a Gatling gun. It doesn't really make any sense. So turns out they lost around 89 men. The Spanish? Hmm. No, the Spanish lost more. And I know that because Guantanamo Bay, which is actually one of the battles that is in the game already, though not the whole thing. They lost a lot. Hold on, if I can actually pull this up. Let me see. Background. Just making sure that I don't accidentally dox myself again. Oh, the Rough Riders. Okay, yeah. Spanish lost like 800 men. Yeah. To be fair, the Rough Riders, it wasn't, that huge. Again, it was a voluntary regiment, right? Um, so you still had the regular, you know, infantry. You still had, which isn't in the game yet, part of Alpha 2. I am going to be working on actually making the uniforms for the regular infantry, which will be nice. Put a little bit of, right now all the soldiers are just the exact same model, so that'll break up a little bit of the monotony. Um, but but yeah, hold on. Let me look at this up. Let's see. What was the name of it? Battle of Guantanamo Bay. Okay, I am going to use Wikipedia. Bear with me. Okay. Even though it's Wikipedia, I'm just showing this because it's funny. Okay, it's not funny, but it's shocking. There was 923 to 5,000, and the Americans only lost or wounded about 29, whereas the Spanish lost over 200, and they lost the war. It was a decisive American victory, American-Cuban victory. And to be fair, the reason why is because we bombed it. We pretty much parked our ships. You can see they only had 2 gunboats, so most of their men were just on land. Yeah, most of their strength was on foot. They only had 2 gunboats, and these gunboats were terrible. We actually had a lot of ships, and if I'm not mistaken, we literally just laid hellfire. And then once we've kind of took most of their manpower out, then we and of course we also damaged their gunboats, all of them. And then we actually landed. We set up camp, and where the game actually takes place. And again, this will fit better once like the cutscenes get made, because there's going to be cutscenes for the story mode. Once we actually had landed and we set up camp, the Spanish did actually try to retake the position, and that's actually which you actually play as in the game, is like the Americans fending off the landing, because it was quote unquote surprise attack, because they kind of did it early in the morning, while we weren't really paying attention. Yeah. So, but again, even then, we still, yeah, you can even see like, yeah, they did try to like re-attack us again, and we again, we still were able to, you know, defend ourselves pretty well, and yeah. The thing is that Guantanamo Bay would have probably been a more interesting battle in this game, had I not retracted my original idea for having naval battles in the game. I was originally gonna have U.S. Marines are better. Um, I was originally gonna have naval battles in the game, um, but it just became way too. Well, if you ever learn anything about game development, it's that sometimes you have just way too large and ambitious, you know, uh, projects that you just never finish, and that's why so many game developers never actually get to finish their games. Um, Thankfully, I have a little bit of experience. I actually, you know what is too big and what is too small. Unfortunately, though, I still this game is still taking long just because you know, life throws you lemons. But uh, that being said, like yeah, I was originally gonna have naval battles in the game, and I just because it was just gonna take way too long, I just decided I'm gonna cut that out, and I would instead just reference it more as in the cutscenes and in the story, but that the game would be mostly just on foot. Um, so it's kind of a shame because there's a lot of really important and also very very interesting uh, naval battles and just naval operations in general that we had in the war. But obviously the probably the other really big one, probably after San Juan and the siege at Santiago de Cuba, is um, the Manila battle at Manila in the Philippines. That one we actually, that was a pretty big naval battle. So yeah, rip naval operation. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, no, they were not the fairest. I don't know if this is true or not, but in the battle at Manila in the Philippines, um, there was apparently reports that the Spanish were still using wooden ships, like wooden sail ships, against these American ironclad steamships. So I have no idea if that's actually true or not. Again, I'd have to, do more research. But if that's the case, that is hilarious. Um, it's sad, but it's hilarious because it just shows like how really unfair um, America was being. Because yeah, yeah, it is. Yeah, yeah. Like I can even look it up. Oh, hold on. Manila. It's hard to do this one. Hold on. Manila. There we go. 1898. There we go. Oh, that's the wrong one. Is it gonna show me the other one? Manila Bay. There. Okay. Wikipedia calls it Manila Bay. Everybody else, even on the Spanish American War website, they call it Manila. Uh, without the Bay part. Um, Interesting enough, though, this battle is also will be in the game. Um, this mock battle. That's actually going to be kind of how the game ends. Um, but I don't want to spoil it. So if you're interested, you can read that. But yeah, I can even see like did they have? Let's see. Yeah, yeah, they lost a lot. They lost a lot. Yeah. Uh, the Spanish fleet consisted of one modern cruiser, half the size of uh, uh, General. I think it's General Dewey's Olympia ship, and then one old wooden cruiser. That's yeah, yeah. That's not great. Yeah, yeah. I would not want to be the Spanish of honestly the I feel bad for the Spanish in the Philippines. There is a story. Um, I don't know if it's going to be incorporated in the main story mode or if I'm going to add as kind of like maybe like a post 1.0, maybe like not like a story DLC, but maybe like a story expansion. Um, there is the story of the oh, what's the name of it? Siege of Balar. There we go. Um, yeah. Well, here's the thing. So let me look it up. Again, see Siege of Balar. I think it's actually pronounced as Siege of Balar. Maybe I'm mispronouncing it. It is Spanish, of course. So this was actually in the Philippines as well, and this story is genuinely um, heartbreaking uh, because it's happened in other wars as well, but not of this scope. So the idea is basically these Spanish troops, they went to this small little village called Balar in the Philippines. There was no roads. It wasn't a coastal town or anything like that. So like it was literally like hard to get to, um, and the Philippines just kept like trashing it. They tried basically like taking the Spanish out. The Spanish were hiding inside this almost like this like church building kind of thing, and uh, what happened is that the war actually ended, and the Spanish didn't believe it. They were like, no, no, this is just like a ruse to get us to like surrender, and then be turned into like prisoners of war. So they actually stayed, and the Philippines, of course, they just kept attacking them. Um, and it got to the point where the Philippine American War had already started, and it was already like well into, yeah, you can even see June 1899. That's already like a whole year later. Um, they they basically like the Philippine American War had already started. They were essentially fighting a war that had already ended like 6 months prior at minimum, or even long, not even that, but probably like more like eight months prior. um and they were still like thinking like, oh, no, 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 the war's still going on, right? Not realizing that the Spanish had already lost, and that was actually now considered American territory. So technically speaking, they were now fighting for the Americans because they were still fighting against the Philippines. um Eventually, what happened, there was kind of, I guess, a nice somber nice ending, which is that they were eventually convinced that the war did actually end. The Spanish did lose, and they were actually given safe passage to go to their home country in Spain, and they were immediately highly decorated because of it. And actually, while there's only one real movie about the Spanish American War, there is actually, I think, two films about the Siege of Balar. It's actually, let's see. Yeah, there was a 1945 film There's a 2008 film, and then there's a 2016 film. I haven't seen this movie yet, but I'm planning on seeing it. Although to be fair, this is like I would not recommend watching this just because from what I heard, uh, the story really is um, it's really really depressing because these people, these Spanish soldiers, they were really in bad conditions. It was very very unsanitary. Um, a lot of people fell to diseases. So it was definitely um, not a good situation. And it's just kind of sad because they were fighting for a war that basically had already ended, and that they had lost. But um, again, they were eventually decorated when they came back home because it was basically a sign of like the fortitude that they had, that they were that you know determined to keep fighting for their country, um, even if uh, pretty much everybody had already stopped. So it was it's sad that it happened, but there's also uh, a lot of patriotism that kind of goes with this story as well because it's a sign that like the Spanish really had a lot of fortitude as well. So even though yeah they lost in the Philippines pretty massively, like at the same time also it's you know to give a lot of credit, to at least give credit where credit is due. The Spanish did put up a pretty good fight. Um, yeah. No, the last Spanish veteran. I don't think there was any veteran from the Spanish American War after the 90s because that was already by then almost 100 years. So and yeah, they didn't have artillery just because uh, again they were very very ill equipped. They were just sent just to this little village just to um, defend it pretty much. That was about it. So again with El Caney, it wasn't the same situation, and technically speaking, depending on who you ask, the Spanish kind of won El Caney, um, kinda, because the Americans they lost a lot of troops from that, um, but the thing is that the Americans didn't need to win El Caney. So even if they didn't necessarily make the decisive victory, they didn't need to because that was just another battle alongside San Juan, and San Juan was the real battle. Because if they got San Juan, then they could do their siege on Santiago, and that's what they did. Yeah, yeah, pretty much. They just gave us a lot of time. So, yeah. But anyway, so I'm probably gonna wrap this up because it's how long have we been going for right now? No idea. Doesn't actually tell me on OBS, but um, yeah, I'm probably gonna have to wrap this up here soon. So I really want to just kind of just say some words, uh, and then just kind of show off what I've already done, what I'm planning on doing. Um, oh, 12:29. There's no way this was only 12 minutes. Really? Like you just gave me your time. No worries. No, 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 no worries for long talking. I'm happy that we got a community here that's very, very interested. So it's no worries. Yeah. So yeah, it's nice to have actually a community of people that have the same interest and want to share their knowledge. Nice. I'm from the mountain states, so I'm on the other side of the I'm on the other side of the country. Yeah, it's kind of cool actually though on the Spanish American War. There's actually a lot of uh, companies and regiments. Not no, you just no just companies. I'm sorry, just companies. But there are a lot of companies from the mountain states because these mountain states were just gaining statehood at the time, so there was a lot of pride, and so a lot of them were coming from there. Yeah, it was interesting because they would have to travel all the way to Florida, pretty much, which we didn't have cars yet. Well, yeah, no, we didn't have cars yet. We didn't have planes yet, so you had to go by train, which took forever. And then you did your training, and then you got sent on a ship to Cuba, which was also a long journey. Like, that must have been really exhausting. But they did it. They did do it. So, again, fortitude. Spanish had it, Americans had it. There was a lot of display of it. So, takes like, well, okay, that's Amtrak. It takes 9 Amtrak trains. Takes probably like, I don't know, like 30 uh 1898 trains. uh I don't know if they really could do that just because well, no, okay, to be fair, they probably did shot at a lot of incoming boats, but the thing is we had a blockade. We had actually created a blockade both on our east coast for defense because we were nervous that the Spanish would send ships to fight our east coast, which I don't really know why they would ever do that. We weren't fighting on Spanish homeland. We were fighting on, like Cuba, Puerto Rico, and the Philippines. But we still had a blockade on the east coast, and then we also had a blockade around Cuba. So it wasn't like they could really do a whole lot to our ships until we actually could land them. Yeah. Yeah, could you imagine though if the Spanish actually tried like attacking like New York City? That would have been the, then the conflict would have been really interesting. That would that would have probably actually been like a World War I type of situation then. Yeah. But no, that again, that's kind of goes back to that two narratives of did the Spanish really even want to go to war? Um, you know, but attack of New York. Yeah, that man, that would have been interesting. That's an alternate history thing right there. Um, I would, there's a YouTube channel I watch. Actually, it's called Alternate History, um, Alternate History Hub, and that'd be really interesting if he made the guy on that channel would have made like a video like, okay, what if we didn't have the American blockade on the East Coast? The Spanish were very very gutsy enough to attack one of the American cities. It still would have been the same outcome at the end. I don't think the Americans would have lost, but it would have been very interesting to see. Because again, keep in mind, like the country of Spain would have was already in a pretty precarious situation. It would have probably fallen into pretty huge disrepair anyway, regardless. So yeah. So anyway, gonna have to wrap it up here, I think. So, um, you on the Discord, by the way? Because reason I bring that up, I'm gonna be posting progress updates, for this next update, both on the Discord. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, trying to make the connection between all the different like usernames. Um, so yeah, uh, it's also gonna be here on YouTube as well. The little community tab thing. Um, I'll be posting like progress updates, because I really want to try to get this next update out. Um, with obviously not in November, but probably in December before Christmas. So that way next year I can just kind of start working on the really exciting stuff, which is actually Alpha 2, all the modding tools, map builder, so people can actually make their own maps. I'll actually work on the next map, which is going to be probably Santiago. That's going to be exciting because that's going to be different from most of the other maps, which are more nature orientated. Santiago is going to be more urban orientated, so that's going to be a really fun map to make. Um, and of course, then after that, it's going to be the story mode, which it's going to be exciting. I get to make cutscenes and all that, so that's kind of like the timeline. Will the game have gore? Uh, there kind of already is. There's like blood splatters that appear. I'm not gonna make it like detailed though. I don't want. This again. This isn't like Call of Duty. I'm not trying to make it visceral. Um, there's a little bit of blood when you shoot somebody, which obvious. The one thing is, um, when a soldier dies, their sort of corpse is like it doesn't like disappear, like it's still like is there. um that I just kind of want to keep, only just because, um again, I don't want to give the impression of like, okay, disappearing soldiers. I kind of want to keep the impression of like, here's how deadly this conflict was. But I'm not gonna make it gory or bloody. It's I'm gonna try to keep it as respectful as I can. um Immersion's important for sure, but I still think it's also important to be respectful, I guess, with the content. Um, in a more like fictionalized setting, yeah, yeah, I would probably be a little bit more okay with showing more blood and violence, but um, again, it's to me it's in bad taste to just kind of almost like glorify violence. So, plus, I will also say this: there's also a lot of younger people, younger than me, I mean, that are interested in this game. Not sure if it would be the greatest thing to show them. Like, yeah, here's you know, somebody getting, brutally hurt, um, or killed, right? It's just, yeah, that's not fun. So, um, but there's at least some. I think what I have right now in the game is fine. Um, Something I will say though, for Alpha 2, I am going to work a little bit on the animations and combat to add melee attacks. And in addition to, your typical punch and kick, um, there is going to be the option to affix bayonets. And you can then use bayonets to actually, you know, attack the other soldiers, because this was really kind of World War One technically also had bayonets, but they were hardly ever used. This was kind of really like the last where we actually really kind of used bayonets. Um, so yeah, that is actually gonna be in the game. Although again, I'm not gonna try to go overly detailed with the violence. I'm gonna keep it immersive enough that it shows again sort of the atmosphere, and it's uh makes the point, but it does, I'm not gonna try to like make it like super gory. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, Spanish and Americans, they use bayonets, and the for the cavalry, there will be also like a saber that they'll get. Because right now all they get is just a handgun, which kind of, other than the issuing commands, kind of makes the cavalry a little bit pointless. At least in the game. So they did have carbines. If I gave them carbines in the game would be overpowered. The cavalry. So I'm not giving them that. But I will make sabers. And again, there's a little bit of game balancing I need to do. So I will take some liberties here and there. But I'll make sure, like in the museum, to actually kind of like make corrections and say like, hey, the game takes a couple of liberties here and there. What about air balloons? Apart from the San Juan map, which yeah, I know we had like a surveillance surveillance. It's not surveillance. Well, we had a hot air balloon that actually was used to like scout. Um, it's not gonna have any gameplay impact though. It's just gonna be basically there just to kind of set dress, and it'll be of course mentioned in the story, and it'll be discussed in in heavy detail. I'm getting sleepy. I'm sorry. It'll be discussed in heavy detail in the museum, but I'm not gonna make it like a gameplay mechanic, just because again, that's too big of a scope. Also, I don't know how many people would be really interested in a scouting mechanic for the game. So, yep, yep. Even younger than that, 22. Uh, there's a lot of younger people I read about that were in the war that did things like that. So, but anyway, I'm gonna probably end the stream here. Let me see if I can go back. So there we go. So, uh, again, uh, I will be posting updates probably on Friday. So stay tuned, and yeah, thank you guys for watching. Hopefully, I can actually make another live stream. Yeah, thank you. Hopefully, I can make another live stream here over the next couple of weeks. Uh, I hope at a better time too. I wasn't planning on doing it so late. So, anyway, thanks, guys. See you guys next time.